Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett, who has to nap after socializing for 10 minutes.
Oh my God, that's the truth. We had that DSE thing yesterday. I needed to crawl under my desk for a little while. And Michelle Lewis, who never met a stranger, but knows some people she wished stayed strangers.
Ooh, yeah. They're strange strangers.
Strange strangers, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know. I can talk. My mother used to say I could talk to a tree.
You could and become friends with it. We have a great guest today. Brock Stamps from Life Austin, Life Dripping Springs Church is going to come on in a little bit, talk to us about what's going on with the church life there in Life Austin, but also just in Dripping Springs in general.
He's an amazing gentleman. He actually performed my middle son's wedding, but he's a great mentor to the youth, and I'm really looking forward to having him on.
Yeah. I looked up some church data and came across this because just wanted to be prepared to talk to Brock. But this is from 2010, so it's a little older, but it hasn't been updated, I guess, since then. But do you know where the most churches are? Which counties have the most churches?
Wait a minute. Like in all of Texas?
Yeah, in Texas.
It's got to be outside of Houston, by Conroe. I don't know what that county is. I would say outside of Houston. Say the
Harris County.
Oh, okay.
So Harris County. So in Texas, there's 27,848. That was in 2010. I don't know. I know COVID killed off some churches, but 27,000 churches in Texas, give or take. Harris has the most churches at 3,031 churches.
Wow.
Yeah, which is one church for every 1,350 people. And then Dallas was number 2 with 2,336 churches, which is one per every 1,000 people, which is kind of crazy. And then Hayes is number 44 with 124 churches, which you know what that means.
What's that?
Everybody in Hayes County is going to hell.
That's about right. Are you a regular church goer now?
Not as much as I used to be. We've gone to Life Austin and Life Dripping Springs and enjoyed it. I used to go to the Methodist church a lot.
I'm really sad to say that I am not as often of a church goer as I used to be when my kids were younger. I mean, I actually was the ultimate church person when I was at Riverbend. I mean, I did the Friday night youth. I was involved in the youth ministry. I did the Sunday morning Sunday school, and then Todd and then we went to the sermon, and then Monday morning Christian moms, and Wednesday. But I just, oh my gosh, I was there all the time. My kids grew up in the Riverbend church, and then we moved out here to Dripping Springs, and it was just really hard. And then we got plugged into the Methodist church out there, and then we went to Bannockburn Baptist for a long time.
You probably don't know this about me. I taught Sunday school for 5 years to little kids, like first, second, third, I think up to 5th grade.
I taught Sunday school to 4th graders, and I wanted to choke them all out. I was like,
it's funny now because I see some of those kids, and like one of them in particular now, I saw him on Instagram. He got a job, a real nice job, graduated from college and got a job. And it's just funny to think about those little kids running around with boogers in their nose and saying silly things, but it was fun to be a part of that.
I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. So
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, one of the things we were going to ask Brock about is how they keep kids busy in Dripping Springs. What are the things that kids can do in Dripping Springs? And I was looking around for things that, what do kids do like on a Saturday afternoon when they don't want to sit at home, play video games, or get on Snapchat
or sports.
And there's not really a whole lot of stuff. I just discovered. Do you remember Jump Wild?
Yeah, that's not around anymore.
They closed in 2018. I didn't realize that. Which was, for those of you that don't know, that was a place where kids could go and they had trampolines
and they could wild jump.
Yes, yeah. My kids went a couple times. I've never been there, but I did discover. And I kind of knew this, but I found out it is actually happening, that we're going to get a skate park in Dripping Springs.
Oh, yeah. I did hear that too at the state of Dripping Springs when I went there a couple weeks ago.
So it's going to be over there at Founders Park. And we're going to try and have Dennis Baldwin, who's been spearheading that campaign to get that skate park built, on in a couple weeks, I think, right? But they're supposed to break ground 2022. I'm sure that'll be a great place for kids to hang out. But
if you're into skating.
even if you're not, I mean, it'd be
know.
fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, we used to take my kids. There was a skating area. Gosh, where was it? Like downtown Austin somewhere.
At Pease Park, there's one.
Maybe that's where it was. And we would just sit there with the kids. But Kendall was bored out of her mind. You know, the boys liked it, but Kendall was bored.
I would, you know what? When the skate park's built over here at Founders, I'll go over and watch. I've skated when I was a kid. I wouldn't, definitely not going to do it now.
I'll pay you $100.
It actually scares me to the thought of even just standing on a skateboard. And I used to be pretty good. I was never
good. I would get on my belly and ride the skate.
We did that when we were younger. But.
So one of the things that I thought would be fun to kind of talk about, since we have a lot of new Dripping Springers, or we have a lot of new Texans, is Texas words or pronunciations. And a lot of times that people don't really kind of understand what we're talking about. And obviously the big one that everybody associates Texas with is y'all, right? Yeah. You all, I'm guilty of that all the time. Y'all. The fixin' to, what was the one I was telling you? When in doubt, just drop the G.
Drop the G.
Yeah, like chewing or fixin'.
Yeah, I'm fixing to go to the store.
Or add extra syllables, which are like realtor, in which people go crazy.
That's true.
Say, what is that burger place over here on 290? Is
Whataburger.
How do you say it?
Whataburger.
It's Whataburger.
Whataburger.
It's Whataburger. That was actually my first job. Did you know that? Working at
Whataburger?
Working at Whataburger at
I
the
can't
headquarters.
Even say it the right way.
In Corpus, I shredded coupons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my mom was an accountant for Whataburger and Whataburger, and they put me in a little room. I actually set the shredder on fire one time because I would stuff
burning
them
up those coupons.
But you know, the shredder would get 10 coupons, and Michelle would get 10 coupons, and that's why I was.
It's funny you talk about things we Texans say, because I never thought Gracie had a Texas accent, because she was born in California but raised here. But when she moved to Michigan, she said everybody always laughs at her Texas accent.
Oh.
I don't even think we have Texas. I may not have one at all.
People
you
say
do.
that. People say that to me, that, oh, you don't sound like you're from Texas. But I think when I get closer down to the valley, my accent becomes a little bit more Hispanic, because I can roll my R's and I don't think I think I have a Tex-Mex accent. But so Buddha. I've heard people say Buddha.
That's the most common one I hear.
What about, I don't want to say it, Burnet. How do you say that?
Burn it.
Yeah, burn it, or people
Burnett
they'll say
is
Burnett.
What most people say.
The new one is, I've always called it Manchaca, only because I'm from the valley, but Manchac, people call it Manchac, but now I think it's back at Manchaca, right?
They changed the name, because it used to be, it looked like it was Manchaca, but then, and everybody called it was Manchac, and then they changed the name, the spelling, and to Menchaca, and I think now you say it Menchaca.
Menchaca.
Yeah.
And then what about the whole, I know this is confusing to some people, Mopac versus Loop 1. So Mopac, it's the same, Mopac, because the Missouri Pacific Railroad goes right down the middle of it.
Middle of it, yep.
Town Lake, I think we've mentioned this one before.
Yep.
Now it's called Ladybird
Lake, but nobody calls it that lives around here.
Yeah, they call it.
How about the state park with the river in it, west of town here?
Pedernales?
Yeah, Pedernales. Pedernales, people. Pedernales.
Pedernales?
Pedernales.
Okay, so here's some Austin ones. Where's the drag?
Congress?
Guadalupe, right in front of
I didn't know that.
UT. That's the drag.
Oh, yeah. I did know that, actually.
How about Dirty Six? Do you know which side of Dirty Six is?
6th Street?
Yeah, that's like where all the bars are. That's Dirty Six.
Okay, that's
Chuggin' Monkey, and I mean, I don't know, I don't even know if they.
The only time I've ever been on 6th Street, we went down there to rent those little 2-wheeled Segways. We rented Segways and took a tour around Austin with my dad. It was actually
nerd.
It was so fun.
What about SoCo?
South Congress.
Okay, SoCo.
Which is not South Congress anymore, unfortunately. When you have a Lululemon store and a Nike store, you've lost the flair there.
What about ACL?
Austin City Limits.
Yep, that's right. So how about, do you know why everything is called Waterloo in Austin?
Do Do I know why everything's called Waterloo in Austin?
Waterloo Park, Waterloo Ice House.
I don't know, actually.
Because that was the original name of Austin, established
Waterloo?
in 1835. Waterloo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at that. Learned something new.
And then, like, if you've heard people say you're going to cross the river, oh, that's cross the river. I'm
not going across the river.
Not going across the river.
That's funny. Somebody said that to me yesterday. I'll work anywhere south of the river.
Yeah. So if you're new here, that's some of the things that
I got a couple more. How about the place where the very famous dance hall is?
You
is it Groon?
Oh, Green. I was like, broken spoke? Green.
Yeah, when I first moved here, I was telling somebody, I want to go down to Groon and take a look around. And they were looking at me and they said, Green? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't know you said it like that. How about Humble? Humble. It's not humble, folks. Humble.
Yeah, give me some more. I can do this. I could do this all day.
Bexar County.
Oh, well, Bear County, of course.
Bear County. That one really threw me for a loop. I would hear it on the radio, and I had to do a Google search or something, and I was looking up Bear County, and there's no Bear County in Texas. Manor. Have you ever heard anybody say Manor?
Yeah,
the
it's
city
Manor.
of Manor. Yeah, it's Manor, of course. Balmorhea. Balmorhea. It's a state park, state park in Texas.
Bal. Don't know.
Well, it looks like Balmorhea, but it's Balmorhea.
Oh, I've actually
you never heard of that?
No,
Balmorhea.
Mm-mm.
There's a giant swimming pool, like a natural swimming pool built there with spring-fed water that I think it stays 68 degrees all year long.
Ah,
it's really cool.
I've
actually never been, but I've seen it online.
Do you have any more?
How
how do you say? Remember when I said the drag?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you say that street? Do you remember what the street I said?
Guadalupe.
Yeah, see,
yes. Most Californians come here as Guadalupe.
Guadalupe, yeah.
Yeah. There was.
I got one for you. Another one.
Go ahead.
Koenig.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, it's Koenig. But everybody said not everybody. People that are new say Koenig.
How about Mueller, the old airport?
That one always gets me. It's Miller, right?
Yes.
But it looks like Mueller. But then you have Mueller Buildings, which is spelled exactly the same way. The Steel Buildings Company.
Yes.
It's spelled the same way, but that's Mueller.
But this is Miller.
But I'm just saying, it's confusing.
This is Austin. Keep Austin weird. And we're Dripping Springs. We're west of weird.
West of weird, yeah.
Did you know that sorry in Texas isn't always an apology? It's like, that's sorry, SOB.
Oh, that's a good one.
Or like, when someone says, bless her heart.
Yeah.
I'm not really blessing your heart.
I get that. That's a funny one.
I just say bless for short now. I say bless. Bless.
Cut off the G and just say bless. You got any more?
Do.
What do you got?
Okay, 35.
I-35?
Well, yeah, but people, they'll say, oh, and it's going to go up. You just go up 35. People don't know that. What about 360?
Go park on I-35 because you can't drive on it anymore.
Yeah, 360. People think it's a full circle, right? No. What am I talking about?
Oh, well, I know what the road is, but now you've got me all confused. What's the?
Well, 360. Yeah, it's the
road that goes north across the Pennybacker Bridge.
What about Horns?
UT Longhorns.
Well, yeah, because you've lived here, so now you know that one, and of course the East Side, and then what about Leslie?
Oh yeah, people that moved here recently, they missed out on that, didn't they?
They just think it's a girl's name, right?
Yeah, but it's not.
It's Austin's deeply missed son, the weirdest of the weird, Leslie, the
I used to see him all the time when we were out running.
Yeah.
He would ride around on a little bike with a little Speedo on, huh?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
What about SXSW?
Well, South by Southwest.
There you go, but people don't know that. Salt Lake. Well, Salt Lake.
Barbecue, yeah.
Bats.
Congress Street Bridge.
There you go.
That was one of the first things we did when we moved here. We went to the Congress Street Bridge and none of the bats flew out.
What about Aurora?
I don't even know what that is.
It's the Mexican food, the mediocre Mexican food place that has the cute signs all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any place in Austin that you think is an iconic, like if you see it online, like the Hollywood sign in California, if you see the Hollywood sign, it's LA, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything in Austin that you think is iconically Austin? Like if you see it anywhere, a picture of it, people go, oh, that's Austin.
I think weirdly enough, it's become that graffitied sign on the side of the coffee shop. I think it's on South Congress.
So
the I love you so much sign.
I can't remember the name of that coffee shop.
What
you think the Pennybacker Bridge maybe?
Maybe the Pennybacker Bridge, 360.
Yeah.
Or maybe even, I don't know, like even 6th Street could be anywhere. But even the Pennybacker Bridge is probably a good one.
Even the Capitol is now with all the big buildings, it's not as obvious.
It's hard. I don't even recognize downtown Austin anymore. I mean, there's some gorgeous buildings. There's that new building that looks like one building
Jenga.
Stacked. Yes, It looks like a Jenga building.
Yeah. And now the new Google building is supposed to look like the sail on a sailing ship. It's got one side that's curved and the one side that's, I guess it's either convex or straight. I can't remember, but when I heard the concept, I was like, how are they going to do that? But it looks like the sail on a sailing ship.
Architecturally, downtown Austin is really, it's gorgeous, but it's just the landscape has just totally changed. But that's a good question. Maybe, you know what? I know what it is. It's the UT Tower.
I don't know though, because before I moved here, I didn't know what the UT Tower was, except for the shooting. Do you know about that?
Well, yeah. My grandmother was on campus during that. She wasn't a student. She was like getting her master's, but
was one of the first mass shootings, I think, ever, wasn't it? The guy sniper crawled or climbed up in the tower and shot. I don't remember how many people. We should have pulled it up, but how many people died? But that was
that was awful.
Was a blight on Austin. Well, let's pull that up.
Okay.
It was 1966.
Yeah. Charles Whitman, 25. He was actually a student at UT, and he shot and killed 15 and injured 31.
That's crazy when you think about that. He shot and killed. That's it's like we have forgotten about that. What does it say? He stabbed his mother, Margaret Elizabeth Whitman, to death at 12:30, and then stabbed his wife to death, and then climbed up in the tower and shot 15 people.
And then it said it's been suggested that Whitman's violent impulses, with which he had been struggling with for several years, were caused by a tumor found in the white matter
of his brain.
Wow. That's a little stain.
That's a sad part of history for Austin, but we're still great town, and we love it here, but very sad.
We've changed so much through the years, through all of that. And I'll be interested to hear what Brock has to say about our youth and kind of what direction the church is taking nowadays.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we're going to take a quick little break and get Brock in here and talk about Life Austin and Life Dripping Springs. So sit tight. We'll be right back.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Well, Brock Stamps, thanks for coming in.
Oh, man, such an honor to be hanging out with you guys today.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Well, tell us what you do.
So I am a campus pastor for in a family of churches called Life Family, and we launched a Dripping Springs campus about 2.5 years ago in the Sycamore Springs Middle School, and I lead that campus. And so we've got about 600 or 700 people that show up on Sunday mornings to a portable church.
I saw that. You put that in your portable church. I think that's cool.
Right now you're at the movie theater. Correct?
We're at a movie theater. Our third venue in about 3 years.
And you are moving off of Darden Hill.
Moving off of Darden Hill, bought 10 amazing acres.
Oh, great.
And so we're going to be building a church out there. Super excited about that. But if we can survive this portable season, we've got an army of...
Where's that church going to be on Darden Hill?
Right next to the school, the new school.
Right next to the school. Okay,
right next to Cypress Springs.
Awesome. Yeah, Holly and I, my wife and I, went to the Sycamore Springs church a couple times.
Okay, very
cool.
And
then you guys pretty much shut down during COVID, right?
So we were completely shut down for I want to say 12 weeks or so. And I mean, we did all of our services online, as a lot of the churches did. And then our Pastor Randy is a rootin' tootin' cowboy,
Yeah, he is.
and he was like, "Guys, let's start things back up." So we started our services back up at Addison Grove, a wedding
Okay.
venue that's on Fitzhugh. Had 150 people the first time we
Wow.
jumped back in, and then we've just steadily grown the campus ever since.
That
But
was the
it's
first
been
time I took communion over the television.
pretty
I don't know.
wild, huh?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
It was, I think we had crackers and coffee or something. It's
You just gotta go with what you got.
That's the way to
Pop-Tarts
do
and
it. That's
coffee.
right. Wow.
Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts and coffee.
What did you see during the COVID lockdown? What did you see people really struggling with?
Wow, unbelievable. Loneliness, depression, anxiety. A lot of marriages. When you put a married couple together and they're used to going their separate ways during the day,
Yeah.
and then they're in the house all day together. It's like some stuff hits the wall.
I know. The
And
truth
so-
is told. Right? There's no hiding at that point.
There's
It's
no
why
hiding, no
That's
running.
why I worked from home for 2 weeks, because I could hear, Todd's an engineer, and I could hear him in the other room. And I told Steve, I was like, if I hear that man tippy tapping on his, because he
She
types
just-
with 2 fingers, I'm like, I have to come back to work. And we were the only ones here.
We lasted about 12 days,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. We were both worked from home for just less than 2 weeks. And then
Yeah.
I said, Michelle, we got to go back in the office.
Yep.
But nobody, this is 4,000 square foot space. Nobody else was here but us.
Yeah. I think the thing that really jumped out above everything else was like just fear. Like, what is
Yeah.
the future
Yeah.
going to look like? How's this going to play out? And how's this going to affect my kids and my job and my security? And so just people that were like, what's
Yeah.
next?
Don't you think that what people thought was really important completely changed when COVID hit? Things that were such a big part of somebody's life, all of a sudden they said, wow, why am I devoting so much of my time to whatever that was? Don't you think that, that changed?
No doubt. And the value of time and family and relationships just became so much more important,
Yeah.
during those seasons. And it's just like, man, there's some things that matter far beyond work and
Yeah.
just the typical routine that we put ourselves in.
I think that one of the most disturbing or disgusting things for me that I saw come out of or during the time of COVID was people could not gather when their loved ones were very ill, or we had a funeral over Zoom. We did a Zoom funeral, and go visit hospital or assisted living, and that to me was just, I know fear played a lot of factor into that,
Yeah.
but compounded with that was just
The
sadness.
despair you would
Sadness.
have to feel when your mom or your dad or a loved one passed away in the hospital by themselves. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. When relationships are disrupted and the typical rhythm that we've got is just completely blown up.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out as a team, like our churches and our leaders, how do we help people navigate this season?
Yeah.
And so what we would do is just try to be present with people and text messages or phone calls. And there during Easter, we were dropping like Easter baskets on people's porches and hand delivering things and taking all the safety precautions to do that. But just trying to let people know, hey, we're still here for you. We're still present for you. But what an amazing season that we've all been through, and it's changed us. We're all different because
without
of
a
what
doubt.
we
Without a
walk
doubt.
through.
Do you think that if something like this were to come about again, how do you think, as a society, would do things a little differently? Do you think would be more skeptical, or do you think that we would be a little bit more push back? I think I would push back more. I mean, you know me, I'm gonna don't do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've learned so much over the last 2 years, and it's definitely caused people to, to push back a little bit more, to question more, and I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That there's those moments that you roll with the punches, but then there's those moments where you have to think for yourself and make decisions that are in the best interest of your life and your family. And, I think that's a good thing that's kind of surfaced through this, that it's taught us how to think for ourselves a little bit more. And
But we've also seen so much more division as
Right.
well as a community, as a nation, and it's just it's.
Are you seeing that in your church where people are fighting with each other about stuff that maybe would have been
Politics or
seemed irrelevant at one time?
Yeah, it's amazing how even in our church, a church of 600 or 700 people, how many people are divided and have just different opinions on how things should go down. And so, as a leader, you have to really be very careful in how you interact with the congregation, because they're really coming from multiple different places.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're ministering to all of them. You're serving all of them. You're leading all of them. And so it's a very fine line that you have to walk as a leader.
So, as a leader of the church, so just let's say masks. Probably half your congregation wants masks and half doesn't. As a leader, how do you decide how you're going to handle that?
Yeah, man, Steve, that is such a tough question. And in our early days of navigating the pandemic, it was definitely one of the most divisive issues. And people have got very, very strong opinions on it.
Yeah.
And so our take was, how do we continue to move forward as a church and lead people? And at the end of the day, you just have to make a decision. And so we invited people that were comfortable in masks, to go ahead and wear those. And then for folks that were not comfortable wearing those masks, to make their own decisions. So at the end of the day, we decided to let people choose for themselves what was in their own best interest. And for those that weren't comfortable in masks, we've got an amazing option for you in an online service if you'd like to participate in that. But it was a very
I applaud you
tough
for
time.
that, because there was a lot of very heavy-handedness, and allowing people to choose for themselves is really where I think, for the most part, we should have been all along. But
And we did take it in phases. So it started out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
in the beginning, back just about 2 years ago, gosh, I remember we didn't know if there were going to be zombies in the streets, and satellites
crazy.
falling out
I
of the
Am
sky.
Legend.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know.
I know.
Remember that? That was a scary time.
Well, along with that, I want to talk a little bit about our youth right now. I think it's probably the most forgotten and most affected of this pandemic and kind of what is going on in the world right now. I told Steve the other day, I'm really getting sick and tired of living through historical events. But imagine these kids that are, you're preteen and your life revolves around your socialness.
Yeah.
And that was stopped. That was put to an end. But just even in normal times here in Dripping Springs, I think our kids, I was talking to Kendall, and my daughter Kendall, she was like, well, I was perfectly fine hanging out at Whataburger. I don't know what these kids have a problem with. And I was like, these kids need activities. They need a place where they can go. I think I was in youth ministry for a long, long time at Riverbend, and I know that kind of like 14, 15, you can't drive, you're too young to drive, but you're too old, even if you are driving, for your parents to trust you out with somebody. And I think this town is really lacking that little bookend group of kids. And tell me a little bit about how do you think that Life Austin, or you as a former youth minister, is filling the gap?
Yeah. And I want to kind of go back to what you mentioned about how the pandemic really disrupted relationships, because we need people. I mean, we need others in our lives. And I think that was really such a significant thing for students, middle school, high school students to walk through, elementary students. My daughter was in a tough place for a lot of that.
Yeah.
For a lot of that. And so disrupting relationships has had an enormous effect. And our students are under so much pressure. There's a pressure on them academically, socially, and then you add a pandemic on top of that and all of the protocols on top of that, and it really has impacted a lot of our students. And so what we try to do as a church is just create great environments for students to be able to come together and build relationships in an encouraging environment where they can get a little bit of they can experience love and experience what it's like to have people that care about them in their lives, and And so we've got some great programs that we've put together.
And also have accountability, having somebody that's their age, but they're still accountable too.
Sure.
I think that's probably big lacking. I see that with a lot of youth. It's like they don't really have those friends that are going to tell them, you probably shouldn't be doing that anymore.
And having caring adults in their lives is such a huge thing too. So environments where they can develop relationships with one another, but also can have caring adults that are pouring and mentoring and developing their lives as well too.
But the kids that do best are the ones that have guardrails, right? They're just the kids that are just, there's no holds barred, everything goes. Those kids struggle the most, don't they? So when they come to church and they're surrounded by other peers or other adults maybe saying, hey, that's great what you're doing, or, maybe you want to reconsider that. They need those guardrails.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because parents are carrying themselves so much. Yep. And parents have something to prove. Parents are trying to advance their careers, and they've got their own interest, and they're driving so hard all throughout the day. And so at the end of the day, when they get home and their kids come walking through the door from school, there's not a whole lot left.
That's true.
And so they're just barely making it through dinner. They're barely making it through the evening. And you have disengaged parents. And it's not that you don't care about your child. It's that there's so much that you're carrying personally that when you get to the end of the day, you don't have much left.
Right.
And so parents are more disengaged from their kids than ever before. And so our kids are facing the most difficult season of their lives.
Yep.
And they're facing that alone.
That's a really important viewpoint. I remember when you were saying that, I used to tell my kids, and I still believe this today, that the most important thing I would tell my kids was I was sorry, me personally. You know what? This wasn't about you. Mom was having a bad day. And I would say, I'm making this up as I go along. I've been a sixth grade girl. I've never raised a sixth grade girl. So you need to help me help you, Kendall.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most powerful things that you could ever do as a parent is to get down by your son, your daughter, and say, I missed it. I got it wrong. I shouldn't have said that. And it's amazing how that opens up the relationship, and they lean in a lot more. And the vulnerability, the humility of a parent to say, I was wrong and I blew up is so powerful. And so that bridges that relational gap that can be created by just the stuff that we're walking through.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think a lot of kids, girls especially, deal with things that most of us adults don't really understand, and one of them is this self-harm.
Yeah.
I was reading that the cutting has gone up.
That's one of the things I had. Suicides went through the roof during COVID, didn't they? Especially in the youth.
Yeah, I've read about so many students that have taken their lives over the last year, and it has come closer than it has ever been. And you'll read about it in the magazines or hear about it, and it's often a distance, but it's become so local and so close. Yep. And I really believe that it comes down to the pressure, the immense pressure that our students are carrying, and they don't have anyone to walk alongside them. Their parents, they're for the most part unaware of the internal struggles of their students. And so the students carry that alone. And they don't have caring adults in their lives, and they don't have that network of relationships around them. That's why I think it's so important. No matter who you are, if you can help your child get into a group of caring adults and in an environment where they can be loved, it can be the difference maker in the life of your child.
You are who you hang out with. You are who you hang out with.
No doubt about it.
How do you? One of the quite big questions I have is, how do you stay relevant to these teens when society is telling them over and over again to be woke?
Beat over the head with stuff that is not good in society.
Yeah, I was a student pastor for 13 years or so, and
you have to be a little crazy in order to be in youth ministry.
You got to be crazy. You got to be crazy. And I had so much fun with that. But there came a point where I was like, wow, I'm almost 40 and I am no longer relevant.
Yeah.
And so I stepped out of student ministry. But I think the way that you can stay relevant is to realize that you're not relevant and to get other people in the life of your child that are relevant and let them do the hard work of pouring in.
So you lead the people that the kids are looking up to.
Sure.
So yeah,
that
I
is
like that.
Brother Brock is speaking. That is great.
Yeah, you got to get other people in the life of your child. And I think the awareness of, okay, I'm no longer cool, but you can still
Don't tell Steve that. He'll get his feelings hurt.
But you can still demonstrate care in love. And I think that is so
stepping
powerful.
out of the way and let somebody else. It's not, it doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're not,
Boom,
you don't
you got
care
it.
about your kid. That actually, I think it means you care about your kid a little bit
You
more
got it.
because you are stepping out of the way for him.
Right.
Yeah. How it seems to me, these kids, part of the pressure is the media seems to really dislike Christianity.
TikTok,
now. Do you agree with that?
Snapchat, social media. Yeah.
I would say that, social media is definitely a challenging space for kids and students, and far more parents aren't as aware of what's happening on social media.
Yeah.
And so they give their students just kind of unfiltered access,
Right.
and they're not really checking in, and that could be a dangerous space.
Yeah, I agree. Social media is terrible, I think, for kids on a lot of levels, but the media in general too. One of the things Michelle and I were talking about is the media portrayal of Tim Tebow versus Colin Kaepernick, and both men doing basically the same thing for different reasons,
Sure.
obviously, but they just were vicious with Tim Tebow and making fun of him and basically ran him out of football almost. And Colin Kaepernick, different story, but the media seems to have a bias now towards against Christianity.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, Steve, some of that is well warranted because I think the church has, had a very difficult time loving people for who they are.
Ooh, that's good.
And so you bow up against that. And so I think it's a lesson for the church to, if we will learn to love people more, then people will embrace the message of the church so much better.
Well, I agree with you because it seems like what you hear in the media is, the Christian right or just Christians in general. They, they hate all the little groups, the gay people and minor, which obviously is not true, but that's what the media seems to portray.
Yeah.
How do you battle that as a church leader? How do you battle that?
That's one of the questions.
It's a big message that they're putting out there. How do you fight against
I had
it?
the same thing because it said 29% of adults have no religious affiliation right now. This was a survey from 2021, and to piggyback with Steve, it's like with more and more adults turning away from organized religion and even the exposure of the whole prosperity church platform. How do you personally, as a man of faith, encourage someone to walk through the doors of your church? How do you encourage them to come in?
Yeah, it's that's definitely, as I go back to that, it's an issue that the church has struggled with for so long, that we want people to look a certain way. We want them to talk a certain way. We want them to fit a certain mold. And if you look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, he took people for where they were where they are, and he sat with them and he talked and he built that relationship with them, regardless of their background, socioeconomical structure, or their demographic. He sat with and talked with and loved absolutely everyone. And so I think the church should learn from their leader, in that we're willing to have demonstrate love toward absolutely everyone. And so everyone is welcome at our church, and we love the beauty and the kaleidoscope of humanity. That's the most amazing thing.
I think a lot of churches are like that. Of course, the ones that are focused on in the media tend to be the ones that are not like that. But
protesting
I think most
at funerals.
churches are very, very welcoming overall.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that's more of the push, and this is just kind of something off the cuff that I thought of, is towards the non-denominational aspect versus, I grew up in a Baptist home, Southern Baptist, couldn't dance, obviously, I listened to all of it.
You couldn't
Don't
dance?
even dance.
Yeah, my grandmother, no, she wouldn't let us dance, and that's why I hung out with Catholics, because they let us do everything. But I think you have that kind of religious affiliation. You're Methodist, you're Baptist, you're Episcopal, whatever. And I'm seeing more and more of the quote mega churches or some of the larger churches move away from that. And it's non-denominational where everyone is welcome, because there's that stigma where, okay, well, you're Baptist and you can't, XYZ.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the move away from a denominational structure is that, and I came from a denominational structure when I moved from Alabama to Austin, Texas. And I've really enjoyed being a part of a non-denominational structure. You don't have some of the bureaucratic
Convention,
red tape and hierarchical kind of governmental structures that you have within a denominational church. And so some of that can kind of be very difficult to localize your ministry if you have to keep in all these other structures. And so
within the pencils and the erasers is kind of what I always say.
Yeah.
If you have to stick within those, and if someone is saying, well, no, these people are welcome, but those people are not.
Yeah.
I think that's where the non-denominational will kind of no, we're all welcoming.
Yeah. And denominational churches, they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. They're doing an amazing job. Non-denominational churches are great as well. And I think it really comes down to, do you love people or do you require people to fit a certain mold?
What speaks to your own heart?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you, as a pastor, stick to Scripture in this modern day when our whole culture is pushing against that? How do you stay focused on Scripture?
Yeah, you're not going to modernize the Bible, right? I mean, you're going to...
Yeah. So as a church, we're definitely a Bible-based. We stick to Scripture for sure, and I think that it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge because our culture, for sure, has pulled away from the teachings of Scripture, and has kind of adopted a mentality of, all truth is relevant.
I actually wrote that down in my notes. The death of truth in America ?
Yeah.
Pick and choose which verses go with what.
Yep. And I think honestly, Steve, that there is a renewal and kind of a hunger for people to. I want to know what is true. I want to know what I can believe, what I can kind of base my life upon. And so I do think that there's a change in some of that. But we were there, I think, for several years. But I think there's more people are coming to church than ever before. Yeah. Kind of coming out of the pandemic, we've seen our attendance just skyrocket really over the last few months.
People are hungering for relationships.
People are wanting to come back into community, into encouraging environments. And so that's been so cool to see.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Everybody thinks your job as a pastor is pretty easy, but I bet it's not.
Oh man, it's I think that there's an emotional weight to it. When you're walking alongside people who are going through some really tough stuff, that's hard. And so you don't clock in at 9:00 and clock out at 5:00. You are carrying it.
When somebody needs you, it could be 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday or something.
Yeah, and whether or not they could need you or not, but you carry the weight of. Yeah. I'm walking alongside people who have got some just devastating life circumstances, and you're trying to do everything you can to be there for them and help them in those moments. And there's a weight to that is difficult for people to see, and so I have to be in community. I have to be in relationship with other leaders that know what that's like, so that I can continue walking.
So when you're not in community and when you're just with Brock, What are you doing? I mean, I see you like to ride bicycles, and what did it say that you went 7,000? Wait, where did I see that, Steve?
I'm going to take over here, Michelle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm the cyclist here.
You do yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about, because you said you rode 7,000. You ride about 7,000 miles a year, and I went, that's pretty stout. That's a lot. That's a lot of riding. That's
a lot of riding.
25, 130 miles a week. That's which most people don't know. That's what is that? 7-8 hours on the bike.
He said that he's a nice cyclist too, not like you. So
he waves with all 5 fingers, not with one finger.
Oh, cyclist! Oh man. Don't post that on Dripping Springs neighbors.
No. They'll come
Keep
out
me alive.
Yeah. I actually, somebody did post something a couple years ago about how cyclists ride side by side, because it's a social thing sometimes, right? And I chimed in and said, hey, it's just 2 friends out for a ride. They're trying to talk. You can't talk when you're one in front of the other. Man, they just came down on me like, those guys are a-holes. But do you ride mostly like Nutty Brown? Where do you ride mostly?
So back in the day when we first moved to Dripping Springs, it was probably 8 years ago. I would literally ride down 290.
Oh God!
From Belterra,
one of those.
Yep, down 290 on the shoulder, and just over the last few years, the traffic has been just unbelievable. And so, what I will typically do now is park at Roger Hanks Parkway. And take those beautiful back roads.
And actually that's not true, because my biggest day to ride outside is Sunday, and I know you're not riding on Sunday, but that's one of my favorite rides too. But I can ride from my house over here and get on those roads.
I'll ride on a Sunday evening, but I do a lot of my ridings in the mornings or later in the evenings where I can just kind of unplug and be by myself on the bike and turn the pedals.
I went out for a ride Sunday, and I wanted to unplug, and I have a little Garmin computer on my bike, and it connects to my phone. And so I had a lot of work stuff going on, and it was just going ding, 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 and I had to pull over like 5 times, and that was the least relaxing ride I've probably ever had. So leave your phone at home, right? Or leave it in the car. Yeah. What do you ride?
I've got a Trek Imonda.
Oh, yeah.
Trek Imonda.
Yeah.
It's a 2018, and it's light. And
Have you ridden anything with electronic shifting?
No, I need to.
You'll never go back.
Okay. All right.
I've got a Trek Madone, and it's got Ultegra electronic shifting, and I made fun of it. Like a couple friends of mine had it. And I'm like, I don't need that. I like the old cable. And then I rode one. I was like, oh, this is heaven. It's so nice. It's so sweet.
This is like gear talk. And Michelle is completely disengaged.
It's okay, Brock. We could do it. We could do it.
I fell asleep.
Yeah, it's okay.
I needed. What brought you here to Dripping Springs?
So I was in student ministry for 8 years in Alabama, and Pastor Randy was needing a student pastor. And so he had a kids pastor that worked for him who knew me from the college days. And so he called me up and said, hey, are you interested? And so we went back and forth for a couple of months, and I'm interested, and I think I'm going to, do something different. And they kept pursuing, and we finally moved to Austin.
Is this your home now? Do you feel home?
Love Austin. Love Dripping Springs. It's a great town. It's changed a lot just in the last few years, but
absolutely,
Drip is our home, and we love it so much.
When did you know you wanted to be a pastor?
Man, that's a great question. So I was about 16 years old, and I was in a church service and really just kind of had this experience where I felt down deep somewhere that the Lord wanted to use my life in ministry. And it's kind of hard to explain that to someone, but you just know when you know way down deep that there's something that God is calling you toward, moving you toward. And so I felt that when I was about 16 years old. And as I moved through high school and got ready to graduate from high school, a lot of my buddies were, going off to colleges and going into business and all kind of stuff. And I didn't really know. And I had lost a little bit of that feeling of I want to go into ministry that I experienced when I was 16. And so the way that I feel the Lord brought that back around and kind of settled that in my heart before I went to ministry school and pursued that. I was on a missions trip in Ecuador, and kind of a cool deal where just before I went on this trip, the Lord brought it back to my memory, like some of these things I had experienced when I was 16. And I was at the time at this local college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and just was completely miserable. And so it was like, okay, maybe it is that ministry that God's calling me into. And so I said, Lord, if that's what you have for me, then somewhere on this trip that I'm about to go on, I want you to really just anchor that, make that, confirm that in my life. And so we were there for a few days, and we were hanging out in this village with some kids, and there was this American missionary that was living in the village, and I was playing basketball with some of the kids there, and this American missionary walks up to our group, started carrying on conversation. He said, "Hey, are you guys a missions team from the States?" I said, "Yeah," and he said. He just started talking with me, and after about 30 minutes, he said, "Brock, there's something different about you. And are you going into ministry? You called into ministry?" And it was just like when he said that, it was what I had prayed for, and I just have felt it ever since, and have pursued that.
So it's
cool.
If not ministry, what would you be doing if he hadn't been called?
He'd be a professional bike rider.
Oh man, that may be I probably would go into business or politics or realty.
No.
Ooh, oh no. We'll talk you out of that, Brock.
Don't do it. It's a trap.
You don't want to do that. That's true. It's a trap. I had a thing. I told Michelle about this. I run downtown on Saturdays with a group, and this past Saturday, it was myself and my wife and two other ladies, and we were running, and we were on the south or the east side of Austin, Pleasant Valley, and we were accosted by a homeless guy who got in my face and said he was going to kick my teeth in, and the stuff that happens. And
I paid him to say that.
Yeah, but and so I had two concerns. One was for my safety, but also the safety of my wife and the other two ladies, and I was trying to stay between him and them. And I've been running downtown for about 10 years, and it's the first time I've ever felt unsafe in what I call Dripping is my town, but I consider Austin a hometown. What do you think we can do about this homelessness situation in Austin, but in all these other cities across the country too? It's becoming a huge problem, and I don't know what the answer is. I know you guys talk about that in your leadership meetings. What's the answer? Yeah,
that's great. I think his name is it Alan Graham? Maybe that is the Mobile Loaves and Fishes. I may be wrong on the name of the director, but his heart for impacting the homeless community is just so incredible. And so there's a lot of I think there's a lot of work that can be done by nonprofits and by church leaders to help make an impact in that. And certainly I think there's definitely some political things that can be done to help make that a lot better. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. What do you think could be done politically? I thought about it a lot on Saturday after this happened. What could we as a society do to help with this situation? I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it really does come down to mental illness. That's such a significant. Yeah. And then
this
addiction.
This guy had obviously had mental illness, but it's a shame he's out there sleeping on the streets.
You got it correct, Alan Graham.
I got it correct.
You got it correct.
Boom.
Alan Graham.
I think he's got an amazing model. With Community First and helping our homeless friends get into some housing and some programs that can rehabilitate them.
I think that's why a lot of people have actually moved out of where they've come from, the Seattles, the Californias, is because my son lives in San Francisco, and it's an everyday occurrence to be approached by someone. And so to now see it here in Texas, so close to home and in your back door, it's a little shocking. And, when you're driving into Austin and it's further and further. Now it's, in the Y and Oak Hill. And I think one time we had somebody out here on 12 too. But how does somebody like Steve, the average Joe, Steve, Michelle, how do we help somebody like that? How do we help an individual? Do we get involved with the mobile loaves and fishes? Are we helping them by giving them that $5 out of our window? Or
yeah, I think that there's a lot of well-meaning people that try to come up with something to do, and there's already people in the city that are knocking it out of the park. The Alan Grahams, certainly there's other organizations that are taking a run at this. And so instead of reinventing the wheel, it's investing in those organizations that are making an impact and giving them more resources and more strength to be able to do that. And what you said, Steve, I do think there's some political things that need to take place in order to, to keep the peace with the community that is very concerned about a growing issue. And
safety concern.
A safety concern. It's a growing issue. But I think it's got to be logistically oriented. It's got to be logistics, and it's got to be compassion. There's got to be compassion. Has got to be an underlying motivator.
Yeah, the thing I see that, and I don't know if they're making a mistake, but I'm going to go out on a limb and I think they are. Governments are just looking at throwing money at this problem. And I don't think that's
not a money problem. It's a people problem.
The budget for battling homelessness in Austin and in LA and other cities is just skyrocketing, and the situation's obviously getting worse. So just throwing money at it isn't the answer.
Sure. There's some incredible organizations that are making an impact. And so we need to bring those to the surface. Yeah. Who are those organizations? And then how can we equip them to do
so
better?
Is Mobile Loaves and Fishes the one that does that little community in East Austin by the
I believe they are behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think their mission is to get people off the streets, get them into one of these tiny homes, and get them stable where they can get a job. And I think we need a lot more of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to partnership between nonprofit organizations in realizing that there's a lot of strength in networking in figuring out, okay, I can bring this to the table. What can this other organization help us with? And so I think creating a network of nonprofit care could be incredibly powerful.
Well, and what Michelle just said too is I think we as individuals tend to look at this problem and go, I just don't see how to overcome that, so I'll just do something else. But, Michelle said one person at a time, right? You just help one person. If Michelle or you helps one person, then we're going to make a difference, right? And if everybody does that, you don't have to make this whole complete cultural change to do that. So, what is your church doing anything? I know you were a pastor downtown, right? So you must have been right in the mix of that for some time.
Yeah, and so our take as a church is, instead of coming up with all these programs that we try to run out of the church, there are some amazing nonprofits in Dripping Springs, in Greater Austin, that are really knocking it out of the park. And so our approach is to take those nonprofits on as strategic partners of the church. And so once a year we take up an offering for our strategic partners.
Good Friday.
We raised about $500,000 this year that we poured back into these nonprofits. And then also we partner with those organizations through the year by sending volunteers, inviting them to the church, and taking up things for them. And so we see it as a great relationship and a great way to do it instead of trying to build something from the ground up. There's things that are already built in our community, and so it's learning what those things are, and then how can we partner.
Supporting them so they can get stronger and better.
So we are upon Easter season, and is Life Austin going to once again partner with all of the churches in Austin and have that amazing Good Friday service again? Is that back on this year?
I think there's plans to do that next year.
Okay.
So in Dripping Springs, one of the cool things is that the churches of Dripping Springs come
Founders.
together at Founders Day, and we do kind of a one they call it One Church of Dripping Springs, and so multiple churches come together Founders Day weekend that Sunday and do like a 10 or 10:30 community worship service. And it was a couple of years ago when we were building up to the launch of the church that we jumped in, and it was just the coolest thing to see pastors come together. There's a good camaraderie among churches that are here in the community.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest parts of our community. The churches aren't all competing for each person.
Yep.
They're all working together for one mission. I love that. But is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to cover?
I think if I could really encourage anyone on one thing, it would be, be aware of what's happening in the life of your students and do everything you can to get them into a place, an environment that is encouraging, where they can be mentored by an adult. Of course, we have those environments that we've built at Life Dripping Springs, and multiple other churches in the community have built those environments too. And there's also great organizations in the community that are making an impact.
Yeah.
Don't let your student walk through life alone. Stay close.
Yeah. It's like any good relationship. You have to be very purposeful about what you do, right? You have to be very
Absolutely.
intentional. And so, we all come home and we're tired, and we just, the people that we should focus on the most are the ones that we don't give the time to.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I were having a conversation last night. We just put our daughter to bed, and, it's shocking how much time we spend continuing to work even during dinner, after dinner, and we stay engaged on our phones, and we'll see a text message come through, or we'll check an email. And, it would be, if parents would just learn to put their phone in a drawer during the evening hours and be completely engaged in the lives of their kids, the difference it would be culture shaping.
Yeah.
It would make a generational impact.
Oh, it would. Same with their spouses too.
Absolutely.
I think a lot, especially during COVID when everybody was at home, boy, a lot of people grew distant, and the phone can damage more relationships than just about anything.
Brock, tell us where to find you on Sundays.
Sundays, if you can find us, you can worship with us.
Look the flares.
Third venue. Currently, we're at Evo Cinemas in Belterra Village. We have 2 service times, 9:30 and 11. And we show up at 6:45 a.m. An army of volunteers that build the church and put it all together. And it's remarkable what they do to prepare that space for people to come in and to be a part of it. And so 9:30 and 11, Evo Cinemas in Belterra Village.
Wow, that's great. Well, Brock, man, really enjoyed having you come on. I hope we allowed you to share some information about things that are going on, and we were really glad that you came on as a guest.
It's a great community to be a part of, and you guys are doing a great job at helping people learn more about it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's our mission. So we'll talk to you real soon.
Sounds good.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.